Hello, and welcome to Fastener Connect. It is my pleasure to introduce the next presentation. But before I do, please note that a recording of the presentation will be available to view on demand. But now, I will hand over to Barbara Sorgato of European Consortium of Anchor Producers, who will be presenting Eurocodes, the European Reference Design Codes. Over to you, Barbara.
Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Sorgato, and I am the Secretary General of ECAP, and I will be your speaker for this webinar, Eurocodes, the European Reference Design Codes, in the framework of our Fastener Fair Connect. My presentation will take about 25 minutes, and at the end of the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. I invite you to digit your questions during the presentation, and I will pick them all up at the end of the presentation and will try to answer at my best. And also will try to stick to the time. First of all, a few slides on ECAP, European Consortium of Anchor Producers. I took a screenshot from our website to explain briefly what the consortium does. ECAP is a consortium of small and middle-sized European producers of mechanical, chemical, and plastic anchors, wood screws, concrete screws, and powder actuated tools and their components, nails and fixing cartridges. ECAP is basically involved in everything around standardization, norms, European assessment documents, ETAs, and European regulations. And ECAP informs its members on all news which can affect the present and the future of their products. ECAP is independent and is self-financed through its members that are all small and middle-sized enterprises. We bring their know-how in SEN and EOTA working group table. That means we are active in standardization. And we also bring their know-how and inform them about the European regulatory framework on construction products, because that's needed when one deals with standardization of products. One needs to go the legal framework. ECAP is a community of manufacturers, namely ECAP belongs to its members and the members decide entirely about ECAP policies and they work with team spirit. That's important because they do not stick to national positions because they know that Europe needs an open market and a shared market, so their approach is a European approach. All their efforts are in order to get European standardization and not national solutions. Okay, the products. We deal with structural fixings. That's important because we will face Eurocodes from the point of view of these products, because that's the experience that we have. Structural fixings is a broad world, and we have bonded fasteners, bonded anchors, injection anchors. They have different names, but basically chemical anchors use it in concrete or in bricks. Then there are mechanical anchors, plastic anchors, and bonded anchors are also used in wood, also in timber. Then there are concrete screws also used in full bricks, and wood connectors, structural wood connectors, wood screws. They can be short as this one, but very long as well. And stuff like this that is called three-dimensional nailing plates. So these are the products we deal with. Our products and generally construction products are covered by product technical specifications. I use the name technical specifications because it includes both standards, SEN standards, and EOTA assessment documents. The SEN standards, you probably know them with their national name. In Italy, they're UNI standards, in Germany, DIN, in France, AFNO, then we have the Spanish INOR, and so on, for every member state. And include also European assessment documents and related ETAs. So these are the product technical specifications. These specifications deal with characteristics, tests, assessment of the product. So their approach is product approach. And we are dealing with the CE marking, which is the framework, which is given in the regulatory framework of the CPR, Construction Product Regulation. We will come later to more detail on the CPR. So we are talking about the CE marking, and the approach is the market, European market. This is a snapshot of a video done by the European Commission. The name is CE marking for construction products, and it gives you in 1 minute the idea of the approach of the CE marking. There is a mark that allows you to achieve great things, and it talks about quality and safety, the trust, that this trust opens new markets, competitiveness, extending opportunities, and so on. So this is the approach of the CE marking, and behind which we have the product standards. But we are dealing with Eurocodes. Eurocodes is all about design. So it is not about the product, how to test it, how to assess it, we assess it, which characteristics, but rather how to use it. So in this picture, we could say it is not about the CE marking of this, but which is a planar plate in this case, but is it correctly installed? Is it there? Shall it be there? Which load can it bear? Which distance one from the other? In which edge of the wood can be installed? All these things. And this is about design. Another example on design, how to use the product, bonded anchor or injection anchor. Is it correctly installed like that, so near one to the other? Which is the distance, the spacing between the two rebars in this case? Which is the distance that we should keep from the edge of this pillar? And is this distance all right? Is this correctly installed? Is the hole the right one? And which is the load that this rebars can bear, and all these things that affect the design, There is a dedicated website of the European Commission about Eurocodes. European Commission is advertising Eurocodes because Eurocodes are very important, because they are part of the common European approach. So if the products can circulate in the European market, also the design should be the same. So the website says about the Eurocodes are a series of 10 European standards providing a common approach for the design of buildings and other civil engineering works and construction products. This is the front page of Eurocode 2, part 4. It is a standard, it is a SEN standard that is then translated and published in the different SEN members, so DIN, UNI, and so on. Eurocodes covers almost everything about the design of construction works. We have the Eurocode 1990, the basis of structural design. Then we have actions and structures, and then the different materials. Eurocode 2 is concrete structures, then steel structures, then composite steel and concrete structures. Then we have Eurocode 5, that's timber structures, and then masonry structures. Then again, a transversal topic, geotechnical design, and then earthquake resistance, and then aluminium structures. The Eurocodes are due to come in their revision in a few years. The technical discussions are almost stopping now, but I guess as soon as the new Eurocodes will be there, we will start a new discussions on other composite structures, because we have the Green Deal now and we cannot ignore anymore the approach to the climatic emergency we are here. So we need to change the way to design, and probably we will approach composite structures with steel, concrete, and timber. But that's the future, is not the present. This is, again, the structure of the Eurocodes. You see, we have 1990 and 1991, which are transversal topics: structural safety, serviceability, and durability. The actions on structures, which belong to all base materials. And then from 1992 to 99, the materials: aluminium, concrete, timber, masonry, and so on. And then again, two transversal topics: geotechnical design and seismic design. This is the link between the Eurocodes. They are all linked to each other, and some topics are dealt at the same time from in one Eurocode and in the other one. For completeness of information, these are the Eurocode icons that have been voted and will come with the revision of the Eurocodes. And for the ones of you dealing with design of buildings, they will become familiar. Eurocodes also deal with execution. It must be execution, installation, because execution is part of the design of structures. Here are some examples with our products. Actually, a bad example of when a building or where an anchor is not put correctly in place and is not working correctly, accident can occur. And this is a sadly well-known accident. You see here, for instance, in this mechanical anchor, it is about the torque moment. This is a correct one. This is an insufficient torque because the sleeve did not expand, so it is not correctly installed. And with a chemical anchor or a bonded anchor, injection anchor, however you want to call it, you see what happens if during the installation, the curing time is not respected. So this is only 25% of the curing time. It simply loses adhesion. Indeed, the Eurocodes have assumptions for design provisions. That means they describe how to design, assuming that the installation is made correctly. And there are a lot of assumptions on that. Let's have a look to these. Post-installed fasteners. One assumption is that the concrete has been compacted adequately, so no water in concrete, concrete well done. And B, requirement for drilling operation and borehole. The holes are drilled perpendicular to the surface of the concrete, blah, blah. We are talking about concrete because that's Eurocode 2, design of concrete structures, okay? The drilling is carried out according to the manufacturer's installation instructions. The hammer drill bits must comply with ISO or national standards. The diameter of the segments for diamond core drilling complies with prescribed diameter. The holes are cleaned according. So a lot of assumptions on installation and correct execution also belong to the Eurocodes. Not all. There has been a lot of discussion which Eurocode introduced execution, but now execution is dealt by Eurocode 2 and also Eurocode 5 timber. It has a great chapter on execution. I'm talking about the revision of Eurocodes. Where can I use Eurocodes? I say, where can I use, because I think of myself when I was working as a designer in Germany long ago, and I learned design methods and job site practices that were completely different than the ones in Italy. Eurocodes were already there, but they were not put in place. They were unknown, they were too new. So when I came back to Italy, there was no way to bring the same design approach. I'm not talking about the practices in job sites. That's different from, not only from member state, that's regional, I would say. But the Eurocodes are a great help for designers that can move from one member state to the other and do their job using a common language, the Eurocodes. This is where the Eurocodes are known and implemented differently. We see that the blue part is the adopted part. It's most of European member states. Then they are adopted, or sorry, not only European member states. The light blue is also not members, so non-EU EFTA countries. So we see Turkey, for instance, there. They use Eurocodes. They are adopted or in process of adoption in a great part of the world. That's the red part. And then expression of interest for adoption. That's a pink one. Of course, Europe has interest in bringing the Eurocodes abroad, as every country has interest to bring its own design concepts. That's a question that is always posed. And are Eurocodes mandatory? To understand that, it's not an easy answer. We need to spend some slides on the legal framework, understanding which is the legal framework. So we see in the website of the European Commission, the regulations and directives that are related to the Eurocodes. And they are, of course, Construction Products Regulation, Public Procurement Directive, Service Directive, and Directive on the Provision of Information in the field of technical standards and regulations. If you look at the CPR, Construction Product Regulation, I put regulation in red to remind you that regulation is a binding law. So it is transposed from all member states in the same way. It overrides national law. A European directive is taken as it is and overrides national laws, whilst, regulation, whilst a directive can be interpreted from member state to member states because the sense is to reach a goal. But the regulation is a law and is taken one-to-one from all member states. So the Construction Product Regulation deals with construction, not with design. Let's read what is written there because it's important to see in which framework design is considered there. The CPR lays down harmonized rules for the marketing of construction products in the European Union. The regulation provides a common technical language to assess the performance of construction products. And the common technical language is also the aim of the Eurocodes. It ensures that reliable information is available to professionals, public authorities, and consumers, so they can compare the performance of products from different manufacturers in different countries. And here we are referring to the Declaration of Performance, of course. We are talking about public authorities, indeed. No, let's stay at product level first. What is mandatory in the construction product regulation? Harmonized standards are mandatory. What is the difference between HENs and EN? An HEN, a harmonized standard, is a standard that has been published in the official journal of the European Union. In the moment when it is published there, it becomes a law, as well as the CPR is binding, is legally binding. And that's probably the reason why the CPR is now, let's say, created trouble in the standardization world, and there is a standardization blockage for that. And we will go probably to a revision of the CPR. Okay, so mandatory are harmonized standards, whilst European assessment documents are not mandatory, are a voluntary path that allows manufacturers that have a product without a standard to have a CE marking through an EAD and then the ETA. That's what's mandatory in the CPR. About Eurocodes, they are not mandatory, but the European Commission says a contracting authority may not reject a tender for works, products, or services which comply with a national standard transposing a European standard. And under the Public Procurement Directive, so here the European Commission mentions the Public Procurement Directive, not the CPR, it is mandatory that member states accept designs to the EN Eurocodes. The Eurocodes will become the standard technical specification for all public works contract. If proposing an alternative design, one must demonstrate that it is technically equivalent to a Eurocode solution, which is a very difficult way. So that's why the European Commission is pushing for mandatory Eurocodes. And that's, of course, it's how it should be. Again, recommendations related to the Eurocodes. We see here, European Commission writes, recommendations and opinions of the European Union are not binding, but express the Council's or Commission's view on policy to the member states. So the recommendation says, adopt the Eurocode as a suitable tool for designing construction works, checking the mechanical resistance of components or checking the stability of structures. Lay down the nationally determined parameters, NDP, usable in their territory. European Commission is asking member states to lay down the NDPs. What's an NDP? European is different. Europe is different, of course. There are places with certain sort of rocks. If you take the Netherlands, buildings are built on the sand. So there are different design approach for certain topics. And that's why Eurocodes allow member states to give parameters that can deviate from the one of Eurocodes and can be more, reflect more the national reality. Of course, the tendency in all these years of existence of Eurocode and in the revisions are to limit the number of nationally determined parameters, but they are there and they allow a certain flexibility for member states. Okay, and the recommendation continues. So we see that it's not the approach of the European Commission is not about mandatory, but it's about recommendations. And that's this last slide on the topic, the Eurocodes and technical specifications. The Commission recommendation recalls that according to Council Directive, technical specifications should be based on the Eurocodes. Technical specifications we have seen are the standards and the European assessment document. So the product technical specification. In particular, the technical specifications necessary for the conformity assessment of structural construction products should refer to calculation methods developed in the Eurocodes. Before we go to calculation, why can't we say Eurocodes mandatory? I think the explanation is that we are talking about safety here, and everything is about safety is outside of the, let's say, safety, according to the Lisbon Treaty, safety belongs to the member states. And that's why the member states are the one that are ultimately responsible for that. And that's why the approach remains up to the member states. So the European Commission can only recommend. Having said that, a lot of member states already took the Eurocodes as their national design codes. So there are, for instance, Germany, they don't have their national design code is the Eurocode. About calculation. In our field, for instance, calculation of anchors or fasteners means a lot of calculation and knowing how much, how to install, so spacing, if the concrete is cracked, is not cracked, how much can the fasteners be loaded, so the design loads and the distance between the single fasteners, so the spacing and the, I don't know, I can't find the other word, edge distance. Okay, so according to which data are these calculation programs done? According to the Eurocodes. For instance, in this case, we are mentioning Eurocode 2, design of concrete structures. But there is another aspect of the design. There are other design technical specifications. For instance, EOTA technical reports. EOTA technical reports are developed as supporting reference documents to other EOTA publications, especially EADs, European Assessment Documents. They are often developed alongside and together with these EADs to cover aspects that go beyond the pure product assessment or beyond a single EAD. As such, EOTA technical reports detail relevant aspects such as design, execution, or on-site testing. Of course, because an EAD is on a new product, and it could be that a new product needs a new design. That's why we must also consider technical report. And we see, I took a screenshot from the EOTA website. These are the last technical reports. You see that most of them are logically about design of products. And in this case, when we look at the Eurocode 2, let me see, where is the, yeah. I will follow Eurocode 2, but I also need to consider in my calculation, if the product is covered by an EID, that I have also to consider design method for anchorage of post-installed reinforcing bars, rebars, with improved bond splitting behavior as compared to the Eurocode 2, part 1. So there is the Eurocode and the EOTA technical report. For timber connections, we have, for instance, the spacing for screws according to Eurocode 5 EN 1995. But we also have the spacings for screws according to EID 13011801063. They have fantastic numbers, the EIDs. So if you see here in the green arrow, we have Annex A about determination of minimum timber cross-section and minimum spacing and edge distances for screws and threaded rods. So it is the same topic that is dealt also by Eurocode 5. So before we go to the question and answer, we need to consider the Eurocodes and the EOTA technical reports. Now is your turn, or actually is my turn, because I will need to go and pick your questions and try to answer. Quite a few. Right. Some of them are repeating. Okay. Let's start with this one. Okay. Our technical report on the official journal. They are not. European assessment documents are on the official journal, if they are approved by the European Commission, are on the official journal. So I suppose the question is about mandatory or not mandatory. EIDs that are published in the official journal are, how can I say, are considered as the legal basis for the ETAs. But technical reports are not in the official journal, so they are not mandatory. They are in a similar condition than the Eurocodes, I would say. Second questions. National determined parameters are all filled. I suppose it is if they are, if every member state is filling all this, giving all these different data. I only have experience in Eurocode 2, Eurocode 5, and Eurocode 8, but I can tell you from what I see, they are not all filled because a lot of member states do not fill them. This mirrors the participation to standardization, which is very different from member state to member state. Some of them do not fill the parameters because they simply accept the parameters of the Eurocodes, and some member states are not active in filling that. And the attitude of the European Commission and of the Eurocodes people working at the revision of the Eurocodes is to minimize the national determined parameters in order to have as much as possible a common European approach. I hope I answered with this question. And the third question is a tricky one. Are there differences or overlaps between the contents of Eurocodes and technical reports? Let me come back to a slide, for instance, in this case, or in this case. I would say sometimes not. Here is clearly written in the title that there is an improved bond splitting. So one must know Eurocode 2, one compared with this one, it's said in the title, there are differences, that's fine. And there are not differences, let's say inconsistencies. I would use the word inconsistencies. Sometimes there are inconsistencies or additions. In this case, I would say it is an additions, but it happens there are inconsistencies, yes. The problem is the different working methodology of SAN and EOTA. The Eurocodes are written as standards. So there are people around the table, there are documents circulating, there is a working group working at that, there is the vote of the technical committee, so documents are circulating. In EOTA, documents are not circulating, or because the approach is the confidentiality, because the ideas are done for one manufacturer. It is one manufacturer that goes to one tab to get an European assessment document and probably related technical report with design for its own product. So there is no circulation of opinion, no technical discussion in a big group, and that's how EOTA works. And it is how it is. And it's European, but in fact it is one manufacturer and one tab. So it happens that there is no dialogue with Eurocodes and technical reports because they are two different institutions, and there is no place where these institutions can dialogue, or if there is a place, the dialogue is not done properly. So yes, there are inconsistencies, but I hope that with the CPR revision, because it has a lot to do with the CPR, this situation, with the CPR revision, this topic will be tackled and solved. Yes. These were your questions, and I thank you for your attention and hope to see you the next time.
That marks the end of this presentation. Thank you very much to our presenter. Please feel free to reach out to Barbara directly for further questions. Thank you very much to all of our attendees for watching. Goodbye.